Greetings, fellow DC fans, and welcome to DCU Summer 2025. And this month, well, since there's only one movie that came out in the DC universe, which is Superman, and that's the only movie I'm going to be looking at this year. So there you go. But anyway, so let's take a look at 2025's Superman. Clark Kent slash Superman stops the nation of Baravia from invading the neighboring country Jaranpur and warns Baravian President Vasil Gurkos to leave Jaranpur alone. In Metropolis, Superman is defeated for the first time by a metahuman called the Hammer of Baravia and flees to his Fortress of Solitude in Antarctica with the help of the superpowered dog Crypto. They're followed by Angela Spiga slash the Engineer, an ally of tech billionaire Lex Luthor. Superman's robots use concentrated solar radiation to heal him and comfort Superman with a message from his birth parents, Jor-El and Lara Vorvan, who sent him to Earth to save him from the destruction of their planet Krypton. The message was damaged during the journey, so only the first half can be played. Superman returns from Metropolis and is again beaten by the Hammer, who is secretly Luthor's metahuman Ultraman. Superman agrees to be interviewed by Lois Lane, his girlfriend and reporter colleague at the Daily Planet, leading to an argument when Lois presses him on the legal and ethical implications of his actions in Baravia. Luthor unleashes a kaiju Metropolis as a distraction while he infiltrates the fortress with Ultraman and the Engineer. They overpower the robots, capture Crypto, and discover the Kryptonian message. The Engineer restores the damaged portion. Superman rescues civilians while fighting the kaiju with the Justice Gang, a team composed of heroes Green Lantern, Mr. Terrific, and Hawk Girl. Despite Superman's wanting to take the creature alive, Mr. Terrific kills it. Luthor broadcasts the Kryptonian message, and Superman is shocked to hear the second half, in which his parents urge him to conquer Earth and take many wives to restore the Kryptonian race. Public opinion turns against Superman, especially when Anchor confronts Luthor looking for Crypto. Lois reassures Superman that she believes he is good, and he confesses his love for her before surrendering himself to the U.S. government. They hand him over to Luthor for detainment and questioning inside an artificial pocket universe where Luthor secretly holds his enemies, including Crypto. Superman is imprisoned with the metahuman Metamorpho. Luthor uses Metamorpho's infant son Joey's leverage to force him to transmute one of his hands into kryptonite, rendering Superman powerless. During questioning, Luthor murders one of Superman's supporters, Molly. A horrified Metamorpho agrees to help Superman escape, and they free Joey and Crypto. Lois convinces Mrs. Terrific to help find Superman, and they enter the Pocket Universe, rescuing the others. Lois takes Superman to recuperate with his adopted parents, Jonathan and Martha Kent. Jonathan tells the demoralized Superman that his choices and actions determine who he is, not the message from his birth parents. Luthor's girlfriend Eve Teschmacher, who is infatuated with Daily Planet photographer Jimmy Olsen, provides some evidence that Luthor is aiding Baravia in return for half of Jaranpur's territory. Luthor imprisons her and lures Superman back to Metropolis by opening an unstable portal to the Pocket Universe, creating a rift in reality that splits the city in half. Superman sends Green Lantern, Hawk Girl, and Metamorpho to stop Baravia from invading Jaranpur again. Hawk kills Gurkos, and Green Lantern invites Metamorpho to join the Justice Gang. In Metropolis, Superman and Mr. Terrific fight the Engineer and Ultraman. After Superman defeats the Engineer, he learns that Ultraman is a clone of himself created by Luthor. With Crypto's help, Superman defeats Ultraman and knocks him into a black hole beneath the rift. At Luthor's headquarters, Mr. Terrific closes the rift. Luthor says he orchestrated the Jaranpur conflict as an excuse to implicate Superman, driven by envy of his public admiration despite being an alien. Superman challenges his ideology, but Luthor remains defiant and is subdued by Crypto. Luthor and Jimmy expose Luthor's schemes to the public, clearing Superman's name. Luthor and his associates are arrested, and those trapped in his pocket universe, including Eve, are freed. Lois confesses that she loves Clark too. As Superman recovers at the fortress, his cousin Kara Zor-El drunkenly arrives to pick up Crypto. The robots comfort Superman with footage of his childhood on Earth with his human parents. Oh, that's sweet. So let's take a look at the production of this movie, beginning with the background. In 2012, Warner Bros. Pictures was planning for the film Man of Steel based on the DC Comics character Superman to start a shared universe, which became known as the DC Extended Universe, or DCEU. Then supposedly DC Films in October 2014, prioritizing Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice as the second DCEU film after Man of Steel failed to meet the studio's financial expectations. Despite this, they said an undated sequel to Man of Steel was in development, with Henry Cavill set to reprise his role as Clark Kent/Superman. Man of Steel director Zack Snyder said they have been considering the imprisoned Kryptonians from the first film and the character Brainiac as an antagonist for the sequel before work began on Batman v Superman. A Man of Steel sequel was in active development as a top priority for the studio in August 2016, which Cavill's manager Danny Garcia confirmed the following month. Amy Adams, who portrayed Lois Lane in Man of Steel, said in November that the studio was working on the screenplay. Matthew Vaughn was Warner Bros.' top choice to direct the film and had preliminary conversations about it by March 2017. Vaughn and comic book writer Mark Miller previously pitched a new Superman trilogy prior to the development of Man of Steel, in which destruction of the planet Krypton would not occur until after Superman had already grown up on the planet. After the troubled production of the DCEU film Justice League, Warner Bros. Reevaluated its approach to DC projects. By the end of 2017, a Man of Steel sequel was not coming anytime soon, if at all. Just like producer Charles Roven said, story ideas have been discussed, but there was no script. Before the release of Mission Impossible Fallout in July 2018, director Christopher McQuarrie and co-star Cavill pitched their take on a new Superman film, partially inspired by the animated film Up, but Warner Bros. Did not pursue the idea. Later in 2018, the studio asked James Gunn to write and direct a Superman film, but he was uncertain if he wanted to take on the character. He did not have a clear vision, especially since Superman is a well-known character, unlike the Guardians of the Galaxy, whom he adapted for Marvel Studios in the film Guardians of the Galaxy. Gunn chose to make the Suicide Squad instead, calling it the easier path. In September, negotiations for Cavill to reprise his role for a cameo appearance in Shazam ended due to contract issues, as well as a scheduling conflict with Cavill's Mission Impossible commitments. Cavill was reported to be parting ways with the studio, with no plans for him to reprise his role in future projects, but Cavill said in November 2019 they had not given up on the character and still wanted to do the role justice. At that time, Warner Bros. Was unsure which director should take the character and was talking to high-profile talent about the property, including J.J. Abrams, whose company Bad Robot signed an overall deal with Warner Bros.' parent company, Warner Media, and Michael B. Jordan, who pitched himself as a black version of the character. By May 2020, Warner Bros. Was no longer developing a Man of Steel sequel, but Cavill was in talks to appear in a different DC film. In February 2021, Ta-Nehisi Coates was revealed to be writing a Superman film that Abrams was producing. The film was expected to feature a black actor portraying Superman, with the potential for Jordan to take on the role. And now onto the development. In April 2022, Discovery Inc. and Warner Media merged to become Warner Bros. Discovery, led by President and CEO David Zaslav. The new company was expected to restructure DC Entertainment, and Zaslav began searching for an equivalent to Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige to lead the new subsidiary. Zaslav and WBD felt DC lacked a coherent creative and brand strategy and were underusing Superman. Over the years, Gunn considered how he would approach Superman if he were given another opportunity. And around late August 2022, he was hired to work on a Superman film that was not a sequel to Man of Steel and would be standalone from the DCEU. Zaslav spent time with Gunn while he was writing the script. Cavill made a cameo appearance in the post-credits scene of the DCEU film Black Adam, released in October 2022, and Warner Bros. Was reportedly pursuing a Cavill-led Man of Steel sequel once again. Roven was producing and the studio was searching for writers. They wanted McQuarrie to direct, but he was unlikely to be available due to his commitments to the Mission Impossible franchise. Coates' film was still in development. Cavill's role in Black Adam was approved by Warner Bros. Film chiefs Michael DeLuca and Pamela Abdy when they were approached regularly by Black Adam star Dwayne Johnson, who began promoting the idea of co-starring with Cavill in a Black Adam vs. Superman film. Cavill signed a one-off deal for Black Adam and only received a verbal agreement that he would continue to play the character in the DCEU. Kevin Feige announced that he would return as Superman for future projects and says Black Adam cameo was a very small taste of future plans. He said Superman would be enormously joyful moving forward. Stephen Knight wrote a script for the sequel around that time, which probably included Brainiac as the antagonist, but Warner's executives were not thrilled with this take. Michael Bay was hired to potentially direct the film. Gunn and the Suicide producer Peter Safran were announced as the co-chairs and co-CEOs of the newly formed DC Studios at the end of October 2022. A week after starting the new roles, the pair had begun an 8 to 10 year plan for a new DC universe that would be a soft reboot of the DCEU. In mid-November, Gunn was publicly revealed to be writing a new DC film. Andy Muschietti, director of the DCEU film The Flash, expressed interest in directing a Superman project with a similar tone to Richard Donner's film Superman from 1978. In early November, Cavill expressed interest in a future project that explores Superman's capacity to give and to love the people of Earth and to inspire others, and said he was looking forward to meeting with Gunn to discuss future opportunities. Work on the Man of Steel sequel started later that month while Gunn and Safran were developing their plans. In December 2022, Gunn said Superman was a big priority, if not the biggest, for DC Studios, before publicly announcing that he was writing a new Superman film. The film was set to focus on a younger version of the character and would therefore not star Cavill. There was potential for Gunn to direct the film as well. It would not retell the origin of Superman and focus on him as a young reporter interacting with key characters such as Lois Lane. Gunn and Safran met with Cavill to explain their decision and discuss potentially working with him for a different role in the future. In January 2023, Gunn and Safran unveiled the first projects for their DCU slate, which began with Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. Their Superman film was the first film in that chapter and was officially titled Superman Legacy. It was given a release date of July 11, 2025, which coincides with the birthday of Gunn's late father. Safran wanted Gunn to direct the film. Gunn said Superman Legacy would take specific inspiration from the comic book All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely. The film was also inspired by the Superman animated shorts and Superman the Animated Series, and other comic books such as Superman Birthright, the Brainiac story arc Superman Ending Battle, Superman for All Seasons, Kingdom Come, and Morrison's Action Comics run, and Whatever Happened to the Men of Tomorrow. Gunn considered using Brainiac as the antagonist for the film. Helming sought to balance what was classic and what was completely new, and chose to incorporate imagery and aesthetics from the Silver Age of comic books alongside authentic storytelling that was focused on Superman's character. Gunn also said the kaiju film Godzilla Minus One as inspiration in regards to the humanity of the characters as a depiction of the giant monster that attacks Metropolis. DCU writer Tom King said in March 2023 that Gunn was also directing the film, which Gunn confirmed later that month. At that time, Safran was confirmed to be producing the film, doing so with his production company, the Safran Company, with Gunn also producing through his production company, Troll Court Entertainment. Gunn was hesitant to direct the film, despite encouragement from Safran and others, to himself focusing on Superman's heritage, his aristocratic containing parents and adoptive farmer parents from Smallville, Kansas, would inform the characterization. Gunn felt emotionally connected to this aspect of the film because of his late father. He said in April that the film so would differ from his Guardians of the Galaxy films, and he suggested Superman's dog Krypto could appear. Now let's take a look at pre-production before and during the 2023 labor strikes. Production design, costume design, and casting began in April 2023. Production designer Beth Miggle and costume designer Juliana Makovsky returned from the Suicide Squad and Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Filming was set to begin in January 2024. Gunn said the character Jimmy Olsen would appear. He did not have for the film to be a comedy intended for it to differ from previous Superman films while respecting what came before. Gunn completed the first draft of the script at the end of April. Production is not expected to be impacted by the 2023 Writers Guild of America strike when it began in early May. Gunn was looking for an actor to play Superman, who his character's humanity, kindness, and compassion, and somebody he would want to give a hug. Audition tapes for the main roles of Superman, Lois Lane, and Lex Luthor were submitted by early May. Gunn began watching them later that month while he was storyboarding the film. At this point, Gunn watched the film Pearl and David Cornswell's performance in it stood out for him. Cornswell had previously expressed his desire to portray Superman, and his audition was one of the first Gunn saw. Cornswell became a top contender for Superman and was set to do a screen test by early June. Jacob Elordi, Tom Brady, and Andrew Richardson were also in consideration, though Elordi declined to read for the role. Patrick Schwarzenegger, the Arrow series Supergirl guest star Pearson Fode, and Jack Quaid, the voice of Superman in the animated series My Adventures with Superman, also had self-tapes for Superman. Emma Mackey, Rachel Brosnahan, Samara Weaving, and Phoebe sorry, I butchered this name. Davsnor tested for Lane. Davsnor was one of the final contenders. Brosnahan made an audition tape with her husband Jason Ralph, who read Superman's lines. Nicholas Hoult, the runner-up to play Bruce Wayne/Batman in the standalone DC film The Batman, was hyped for Luthor but chose to pursue the role of Superman instead because he felt he could play Luthor well. He insisted himself to focus on auditioning for Superman. Considered A-list actors he already worked with for Luthor and discussed the role with the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 actor and supported to be Bradley Cooper. Black actors were also being considered for Luthor. Testing took place using the label Apex, a reference to a comic version of Luthor called Apex Luthor. Other superheroes were expected to be established in the film's setting. The casting had arranged for a black actor to play Michael Holt/Mr. Terrific, and for an Asian or Latina actress to play a character labeled Blitz. In-person screen tests took place at the Warner Brothers Studios lot in Burbank, California, with Gunn and Safran in mid-June 2023. The actors tested in makeup and costumes as Kent and Lane were in the following pairs: Walter Brosnahan, Brittany Devnor, and Cornswell and McKay. The Kent contenders then tested the costume as Superman against McKay. One of Cavill's original DCU Superman suits, which was in poor condition, was used for the tests. Gunn said Brittany messed it up, and then it was torn to shreds by Cornswell, who was too tall. Gunn entered the test together to be played for a deciding committee that included Zaslav, and the casting of Cornswell as Superman and Brosnahan as Lane was announced on June 27th. Gunn personally contacted the actors to inform them of their castings. He offered the role of Superman to Cornswell while he was filming Twisters. John Cena, Christopher Smith/Peacemaker in the DCU, doing the same. Casting for other roles was set to follow, including for members of the superhero team The Authority, who were expected to be introduced in Superman Legacy ahead of a planned film about the same team. Brothers Alexander Bill Skarsgård were on the shortlist for Luthor. It was unclear whether Holt would return to try for Luthor again, but Gunn later contacted Holt about playing Luthor, which he accepted after realizing he was better suited for the role. Cornswell and Brosnahan each earned $750,000 for their roles, while Holt was highest paid actor Superman, earning $2 million. They were eligible for bonuses based on the box office performance. Gunn was paid $15 million for his work in Superman, in addition to a 7-figure salary for his role in DC Studios. On July 11, 2023, 2 years before the film's scheduled release date, the casting Isabella Merced, Eddie Gathegi, and Nathan Fillion, respectively, as the superheroes Kendra Saunders/Hawkgirl, Mr. Terrific, and Guy Gardner/Green Lantern was announced. Merced tested as Barbara Gordon/Batgirl for the unreleased DCEU film Batgirl, but Fillion starred in several of Gunn's earlier films, including as Courtney Pinster/TDK in The Suicide Squad, and had previously voiced fellow Green Lantern Hal Jordan in several animated projects. Gathegi was cast over 200 actors. Anthony Kerrigan, who expressed interest in playing Luthor, was cast as superhuman Rex Mason/Metamorpho the next day. Gunn chose some of these actors sometime earlier, but had been waiting until Superman and Lane were cast before negotiating further actor deals, leaving little time to complete negotiations before the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strike began on July 14th. Response to concerns that other superheroes would take away from the story Superman and Lane, Gunn said those two characters remained the film's focus, and the other actors were being cast for multiple DCU projects. He later elaborated the large cast of characters was included in the film because he wanted to explore Clark Kent's interactions with his colleagues and Superman's interactions with other superheroes, and show how those groups impact the characters' values and choices. And now onto the post-labor strikes. When the WGA strike ended in September 2023, Superman Legacy was expected to begin filming in early to mid-2024. Jason Momoa, who portrayed Aquaman in the DCEU, was reported the following month to have discussed portraying the character Lobo in either this film or a solo film. He was later cast in that role for the DCU film Supergirl, original title Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. SAG-AFTRA strike ended on November 9th, and filming was clarified to begin in March 2024. Gunn said the film would still make its July 2025 release date. Maria Gabriela de Ferreira was revealed to be cast as Angel Spica/Engineer, one of the film's antagonists, and a member of the Authority. In mid-November, Madison Beer said she submitted a self-tape and unsuccessfully auditioned for a role, as did O'Shea Jackson Jr. Holt was in talks to play Luthor prior to the SAG-AFTRA strike, and negotiations for the role were continuing in November. When Skylar Gisondo and Sarah Sampaio were revealed to have been respectively cast as Jimmy Olsen and Luthor's assistant Eve Tessmacher. Note that Gisondo, Sampaio, and De Ferreira had been cast prior to the strike, and the roles of Mr. Terrific and Tessmacher were particularly difficult to cast and required many auditions. In December 2023, Gunn's brother Sean was cast as Maxwell Lord for future DCEU projects, after Pedro Pascal played the role in the DCEU film Wonder Woman 1984. The character was expected to be referenced in Superman Legacy, but it was unknown if he would appear in the film. James confirmed that Holt had finalized a deal to play Luthor, and Miriam Shore entered negotiations for an undisclosed role after appearing in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. The also said the cast included Sean Gunn and Pom Klementieff, who starred in the Guardians of the Galaxy films, for James Gunn said that Klementieff was not involved in the film and Shore had not been cast. He added that the film's script had been mostly completed before the writer's strike. Gunn said in January that work on the sets, prosthetics, and visual effects models were underway. The costumes were being completed, and most of the actors had been cast. Brosnan said the film was being made with a lot of love for the source material, and many cast and crew members had grown up watching Superman films and reading the comics. At the end of the month, Millie Alcock was cast as Superman's cousin Kara Zor-El/Supergirl. The character is reported to be making her debut in Superman Legacy and her own DCU film, Superman Woman of Tomorrow. Alcock had performed auditions and screen tests on the Superman Legacy set in Atlanta, Georgia, earlier in January. Pre-production work in Ohio began in early February 2024, when the Ohio Department of Development announcing the Superman Legacy would be partially filmed in Cleveland and Cincinnati. The film was awarded over $100 million for the state's tax credit program, based on $37 million spent in the state out of films. Based on $37 million spent in the state out of films reported total gross production budget of $363.8 million. Gunn disputed the accuracy of this budget, which made it one of the most expensive superhero films ever made. The film was reported to have a net production budget of $225 million, with incentives and tax breaks forced in. In February, Bassem Youssef had been cast in the film, reportedly as Rahman Hijardi, the leader of a fictional Middle Eastern country, but his character was removed from the script. He made this potentially due to comments he made in October 23 criticizing the Israeli government during the Gaza war. Gunn disputed this, explaining they discussed the role with Youssef before the WGA strike, but the actor had not been formally offered the part, and the character was removed after the strike ended and before Youssef's comments were made. A tailgate read with the cast was held on February 22nd, and Gunn revealing that Terrence Rosemore, was portraying Luther's henchman Otis Berg after having some small roles in Gunn's prior films. Zaslav said filming would begin the following week when Gunn announced that he had shortened the film's title to Superman. It came to feel while writing the film that it was about looking forward, while the Legacy subtitle was about looking backward. And now on to filming. Principal photography began on February 29th, 2024, which is Superman's birthday in the comics. Filming took place in the Alventon Valley in Svalbard, Norway, for 1 week to shoot scenes featuring the Fortress of Solitude. Gunn chose Svalbard for its natural beauty, landscapes, and similarities to Antarctica, where the fortress is located. Filming occurred under the working title Genesis. Henry Brant returned as cinematographer for later two Guardians of the Galaxy films, The Suicide Squad and The Flash. The entire film was shot using IMAX certified red digital cinema cameras. Filming was delayed from an initial 2024 start by the SAG-AFTRA strike and was expected to last around 4 months. FX Studios Legacy Effects worked on the film's practical effects, contributing character designs, prosthetic makeup, specialty suits, and animatronics. Wendell Pierce was cast as Perry White at the start of March. Filming at Trio Studios in Atlanta, Georgia had begun by March 8th and was expected to last until August 2nd. Filming in Cleveland and Cincinnati was said to take 37 days between April 1st and August 23rd. Filming was also expected to take place in Macon, Georgia. In April, Brewer Taylor Vince and Neva Howell were cast as Jonathan and Martha Kent, while Beck Bennett, Michaela Hoover, and newcomer Christopher McDonald were cast as Daily Pen employees Steve Lombard, Kat Grant, and Ron Troop in June. Hoover previously appeared in several Gunn's films. Corson and Bresnahan filmed a 12-minute interview scene together, which Gunn described as 10% of the film shot in 2 days, and highlighted their chemistry as palpable. The 1940 film His Girl Freddy was a major reference for depicting the relationship as equal matches for each other with a longing romance, a witty comedy inspired by the works of Preston Sturges. Characters in the animated DCU series Creature Commandos were expected to appear in the film, and Gunn and staff were intended for the same actors to portray characters across animation and live action in the DCU. Set photos revealed that Frank Grillo was reprising his role as Ruth Lake Sr. from that series. The production moved to Northeast Ohio on June 14th, with filming took place at the Highlands Beach State Park in Mentor, Ohio. 6 weeks of filming took place throughout Cleveland, beginning in downtown Cleveland on June 24th. Filming locations included Ontario Street, the Cleveland Greyhound Station, Public Square, the Detroit Superior Bridge, PNC Plaza, Progressive Field, and Cleveland Arcade. Exterior shots of the Huntington Bank Building, Key Tower, and the Soldiers and Sailors Monument were filmed in Public Square. The exterior of the Leader Building stood in for the headquarters of the Daily Planet, and Key Tower was used as headquarters for SAG Enterprises. Filming in Cleveland was completed on July 16th, but Gunn said there was a couple of weeks of left shooting. The production moved to Cincinnati by July 18th, taking place at the Cincinnati Museum Center and Union Terminal and in the Lytle Tunnel. Filming wrapped on July 30th. And now finally, let's move on to post-production. In August 2024, Sean Gunn confirmed his casting as Maxwell Lord for the film. The following month, Alan Tudyk was revealed to have a role in the film after voicing several characters in Creature Commandos. Tudyk voices the Superman robot 4. Comic writer Mark Waid revealed that Krypto was appearing in the film, which got officially confirmed in October. He explained that the character's portrayal was inspired by his dog Ozu, who was adopted soon after Gunn began writing Superman. And said Ozu was at first problematic to say the least. And we're thinking, gosh, how difficult will life be if Ozu had superpowers? And the script came to the script and changed the shape of the story. Gunn began test screening the film by the start of December. A day and a half of individual pickup shots are scheduled to take place in Los Angeles shortly after, which Gunn said was to enhance the film rather than reshoot any scenes. Alcock was confirmed to be appearing in the film in January 2025. 3 days of pickups had also taken place in Atlanta by the end of May. Gunn said the film was completed and received a picture lock on June 5th. Later that month, Michael Rooker and Clementine were confirmed to have voiced two Superman robots alongside Cooper and Angela Safran as Superman's co-training parents, Jor-El and Laura Lorvan. William Wayne and Greg Albert co-edited the film after they respectively worked on the DC films The Batman and Blue Beetle. Much of the visual effects team from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 returned to work with Gunn on Superman, including visual effects supervisor Stephanie Soretti. Visual effects were provided by Framestore, ILM, and WetFX. The film features 1,766 visual effects shots. Framestore created Crypto and shared the asset with ILM and Weta because each studio had crypto shots to deliver. Framestore also worked on the Fortress of Solitude. ILM scanned the practical build of the Hammer Bravia, built by Legacy, and developed the full CG version. ILM created Metropolis with New York City as a reference point for scale, style, and density, and used shots filmed in Cleveland to become part of Metropolis. Weta created the Kaiju creature and used ILM's asset Metropolis for the Kaiju fight sequence. The VFX team created an additional version of Cleveland Public Square so that Weta could make shots that required extensive camera work that could not be achieved with drones, and also created all the interactions of the Kaiju with the environment. So overall, I really do like this movie, and as the first part of this new DC universe, I really like it a lot. And plus, hey, Superman is my favorite superhero, so that kind of factors into it as well. So yeah. So overall, I give Superman, I give it 5 Superman capes out of 5. Well, anyway, tune in next year as we take a look at the adventures of Superman's cousin in Supergirl. So anyway, until next year, in the words of Superman, I'm here to fight for truth, justice, and a better tomorrow.